Okay. Well, we're gonna start this training. Very excited for this training. We're gonna be going over buyer tours and good practices, right? So how do we maximize, those opportunities when we're in front of our buyers to make sure that we're not only being efficient with their time, but being efficient with our time as well, right? And something we got to keep in mind, folks, we're going to spend a large chunk of our time showing properties. And in order to scale our business and take it to the next level, we want to make sure that we treat these showings with as much efficiency as we possibly can. Because in order for us to scale our business, we're going to make sure that we cut the fat. We want to make sure that we don't use more time than we have to so that we can be efficient and focus more time and move on to the next client. Makes sense? So without further ado, step number one is going to be get your buyer brokerage agreement signed if it's your first showing with that buyer. Now, this goes for those agents that are part time, but especially those of us that are full time realtor professionals. You want to always remain compliant, especially if you're full time. This business is your bread and butter, right? So, step number one is get that buyer brokerage agreement signed if this is your very first showing. Always remain compliant, guys. It is not worth putting your license at risk for one, two, or three deals and not be compliant. Especially if this is the way that we put food on the table, guys. Follow compliance. Always do what you have to do. Do not put your license in jeopardy, right? So there are several ways of getting this buyer brokerage agreement signed. Now, what you want to do, folks, is because a lot of times people are going to approach us out of the blue and they're going to say, hey, I want you to show me this property, right? Obviously, we know we need to get that agreement signed. Now, always give your client the path of least resistance, folks. What that means is I don't like the approach of when a client comes up to me and tells me they want to see a property. I'm not going to tell them, hey, that sounds great, but before I show you this property, I'm going to go ahead and have you sign this document. Otherwise, I can't show it to you. That is not the most efficient way to handle things. If you take that approach, the buyer's simply not going to sign your document and they're going to go and move on to the other realtor that will show them the property. Now, if you want a more efficient way to handle and navigate this conversation, what you're going to want to do is actually send them the documentation to their email just for review. And then you're going to schedule that property with for the client, and then you're going to get the form signed in person, right? Because again, folks, when someone approaches you to see a property for the first time, your main goal is to maximize that opportunity. Your main goal is to get in front of that buyer, right? Because as soon as you get in front of that buyer, they're going to start mentally associating you as their realtor. So if you want a more efficient strategy in order to get this buyer brokerage agreement signed is you schedule the property. So you're going to give the buyer two options. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, sounds great. I spoke to the listing agent. We can see the property tonight at 6 p.m. or tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. What works best for you? Do not give them a yes or no. Give them two options that work with your schedule. And once they agree, let's say they want to see the property tomorrow, sounds great. We're confirmed for a showing tomorrow at 9 a.m. Friendly heads up. I just sent your way a document for your review. So you're going to send the document to them, not as an e-sign, but just so that they have that copy in their records, right? Because what you're going to want to do is come come the time that they want to see the property, you're going to be in front of them and you're going to get that document signed. Make sense? Perfect. Perfect. So main idea is get in front of the client, get that face to face, let them mentally associate you as their realtor, and then get that documentation signed. Very important, folks, is remain compliant, get that buyer brokerage agreement, and get those signatures. I always like to include these in my presentation because it's truer than you may think, right? So perception is reality, folks. You may have heard that before, but it's the truth. Perception is reality, right? In my book, uh if you showed up to the showing on time, you're already late, right? We as realtor professionals should not be showing up to our showings at the time of the showing. And if you have a bad habit of showing up late, you need to refrain from doing that from now on because it is not a good look for you, right? So if you show up on time, you're already late. There is a huge benefit to showing up before the client. So personally, I like to show up at least 30 minutes to an hour before the showing. Why? It gives you an opportunity to look at the actual exterior of the home. It gives you an opportunity. If the home is located in a community, you have the chance to explore that community. Just take 5 or 10 minutes. You know, you're gonna find the amenities, right? You're gonna see that the pool is over here. You're gonna find that the playground is 2 streets down, and you're just going to take those 5 or 10 minutes to familiarize yourself with the property so that when your client is going to ask you questions about what amenities are around, for example, you're now going to have a higher chance of success and you're going to be able to answer those questions just by showing up early, just by taking 5 or 10 minutes to explore the neighborhood. Do yourself a favor. But folks, very important, do not be showing up on time to these showings. You need to show up at least 15 minutes before. But ideal scenario is show up 30 minutes to 45 minutes before the showing. So if your first property is vacant, right? This is in the scenario that the property is vacant. There's no one there. Obviously, step one is get there earlier, right? You're gonna get there earlier. Property's vacant, so maximize that listing. Shoot content. You know, prep and clean the property for your buyer. So, what you want to do, folks, another big reason why you want to get there earlier, especially if the property is vacant, is you want to get over any hurdles while you're alone, right? It happens to the best of us where maybe we have issues opening up a lockbox or gaining access through Supra. You want to get rid of those hurdles up front because when the time comes that you're in front of the client and you're showing the property, you want that showing, you want that experience to feel as seamless as possible, right? So maybe you're gonna have trouble with the lockbox. Maybe you're gonna have trouble turning on the lights. Again, you want to get rid of those hurdles while you're by yourself, while you get to the showing earlier, right? So that when the client's there, you would have already figured out these hurdles, these obstacles, and as you're showing the property, it's gonna flow much smoother. It's gonna be a cleaner showing. That all plays into the psychology of your buyer. So again, important point, get there early, you know, take advantage, especially if the property is vacant. Shoot content, you know, always promote yourself on the socials. Prep and clean the property for the buyer. If you see a cockroach on the floor, kick it out of the way, right? Because you don't want your buyer to see that. And you want to take the opportunity of getting there sooner in order to maximize that showing and make that showing with your buyer as seamless as possible, right? Next, quick tip, email yourself the MLS sheet or some notes for each home. You want to have a general idea of the homes that you are showing and study them briefly beforehand. So, what is the benefit of this? There's nothing uglier than being at a showing, having a buyer ask you questions, and then you having to look at your phone or MLS sheet for every question. So it's going to take a little bit of short-term memory, folks, but you're going to get those reps in. You're going to get that muscle stronger, right? So for each home, before you enter the home, while you're by yourself, you're going to study a few things about the home, right? Now, I like to keep in mind the number of beds, the number of bathrooms, the purchase price. I like to memorize the year that the home was built. I like to memorize the amenities that are included, your HOA fee, how many days it's been on the market, because these tend to be frequently asked questions from your buyers. And there's something very magical, very professional about having these answers to these questions at the top of your head rather than having to look at an MLS sheet, having to look at your phone to answer each one of your buyer's questions. Just take a few minutes, study the essentials of the house so that you know them off the top of your head, right? Just take 1 or 2 minutes, but really memorize them. Now, if for some reason the buyer asks you a question and you're unsure about it, by no means should you guess. That's when you pull out the MLS sheet or that email of the MLS sheet that you emailed yourself and give them the right answer. You do not need to guess. Just try to just try to know most of the questions that they're going to ask you. Learn the essentials: bedrooms, bathrooms, days on market, purchase price, amenities, and HOA fees. Make sense? Because at the end of the day, folks, we want to be as efficient as possible. We want to maximize the showing and we want to make the showing as smooth as possible. We want to make it seem in your buyer's mind, if that's the right house for them, like everything with that showing was perfect, right? So next point, as your buyers get there, right? You want to make sure that you're already in front of the home waiting for them. Now, personally, I like to get to the showing early, and I don't like to see my buyers see me get out of the car as if I was just sitting idly by. If you have a showing at 10 a.m., by 9:45 or 9:50, I like to be outside looking at the home, studying different things, right? So that when the buyer comes, they already see your face and you could give them a nice friendly hello, a nice friendly wave, and break the ice, give them a smile, lay on the charm a little bit. You don't want to see, you don't want them to see you just scrambling out of your car like you were just on TikTok. You want to be in front of the house, inspecting the home, waiting for them, give them a friendly hello, and be that very first face that they see as they get to that property, right? Again, real estate is a game of chess. Real estate is pure psychology. Use that psychology to your advantage, guys. Uh, Another important psychological tip for you, right? Refrain from parking in the driveway, right? I like to park as far away from the home as I possibly can. If you have to park in front of it, that's fine. Just try to park to the side. If there's a guest parking nearby, I'll always take that because as the buyer arrives to the property, I want them to really see the home empty. And I want the psychological effect of the buyer driving into the driveway and just give them a sneak peek of what it's going to feel like for them to drive into their potential new home. Again, pure psychology, right? But we want them to really envision themselves coming home from work one day, parking at the driveway, and we want to give them a taste of what that's like, right? So that's a nice little lever you could pull. Again, real estate is pure psychology. Use it to your advantage, right? So the buyer's gonna pull up, you're already outside, you're on the phone looking busy, or you are inspecting the house, you give them a wave as they park into the driveway. You're gonna greet them, right? Now, what I like to do, not just for the initial interaction with this buyer, but for the very first showing that day, you're gonna want to give a brief introduction of yourself, how many homes you will be touring that day. And you want to give an intro on the home that you are about to walk into, right? So the buyer comes into the driveway, you tell them hello. If it's the first time meeting them, hello, my name's David. I'm a full-time realtor. This is my bread and butter, and I love what I do. Here for today's itinerary, we're going to be looking at three homes, right? Starting with this one, we have a three-bedroom, two-bathroom home built in 2015. It has 14 days on the market. Now, as far as purchase price, I don't like to really tell them the purchase price up front. Let them ask for it as you're showing the property. But give them the essentials, right? Give a brief introduction. Tell them you're going to be seeing three homes that day, starting with this home, and then give them the frequently asked questions. Give them the bedrooms, bathrooms, days on market, HOA fee. Just give a short introduction. Prepare them for what they're about to see as they walk into the home. And after you give that introduction of yourself, of your tours, of the home you're about to see, if this is your very first interaction, your very first showing for with that client, that's when you're going to bring out the buyer brokerage agreement and you're going to explain it to them. You're going to get it signed. You're going to remain compliant, and you're going to get it done, right? But the point is, folks, is you want to really get the showing. You want to get in front of them before anything, right? Do not give them a hard stop and tell them, hey, before I show you this property, I need this signed. Again, the strategy is you send it to their email, you tell them it's there for review after you've already confirmed the showing. They want to see this house, so capitalize on that. Get in front of them so that they can mentally associate you as their realtor and then get that agreement signed, right? Before walking into a vacant home, again, this is in the scenario that showing number one is a vacant home. First and foremost, always knock and announce your presence. Always, always. Squatters are a real thing. Secondly, folks, we're in Florida. The Second Amendment is a real thing as well, right? So always give a nice, confident knock and announce your presence. You say, hello, is anyone home? Right? Just in case you have squatters, or sometimes you have the owner of the property staying there, right? It might show up as vacant on the MLS, but sometimes owners are still staying there and they just leave the home for whenever the showing is scheduled. Do not walk into someone. Always knock, announce your presence, make sure that the home is empty. And the next thing you want to do in the case of a vacant home is you want to tell your buyers, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, give me 2 minutes. I want to enter the home, turn on, let me prep the home for you so that we can really check it out. Right? So you're going to enter the home, give yourself 2 minutes. You're going to turn on the lights, you're going to open the blinds, prepare the home. But very, very important, you want to take those 2 to 3 minutes to also make mental notes about the house, right? As you're turning on the lights and opening up the curtains, you're going to want to make note. Okay, the garage is on my right hand side, the primary bedroom is over here, the kitchen is over there, right? Start making these mental notes. Take advantage of those 2 minutes as you're prepping the house so that you can answer questions that your buyers may have, right? Because it's going to be their first time walking into the home after you've turned on the lights, and they may ask you, hey, where's the garage, right? Where's the primary bedroom? And by scoping out in those 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to have an answer to those questions, right? It's all about being prepared. It's all about playing the game of psychology, right? You want to make that showing as seamless as possible. You want the buyer to like the home. In the scenario they like the home, you want that showing to have been seamless. You want it to feel like fate brought that buyer and that home together. As you show the home, guys, again, perception is reality, presentation is everything. Do not make obvious statements like, hey, this is the kitchen, This is the bathroom. Your buyer knows what a kitchen and a bathroom look like. Put on your real estate goggles and be a little more edgy, guys. Like, instead of saying this is a kitchen, there's a bathroom over here, bathroom over there. Make some, say, look, this home I noticed has very high ceilings, right? It gives a home a sense of presence. Or you could say, look, this home has an open concept layout, right? This kitchen is an open concept, right? You want to just be more particular about the words that you decide to use. Do not just state the obvious, state things that maybe weren't as obvious to your buyer because they're not in the business in the same way that we are, right? So point out different things, right? High ceilings, open concept. Point out certain things about the backyard. Do yourself a favor. Now, I don't like to point anything negative if it's my opinion. What do I mean by that? So, real estate, the buying of real estate is like music and it's like food, right? It's a very subjective thing. Something that's pretty to you might not be pretty to your buyer and vice versa, right? So, do not point anything negative that is your own opinion. I would not say, personally, I don't like the color of this wall, or personally, I don't like this tile, right? Because maybe it's something that you don't like, but it might be an upgrade. It might be the next step for your buyer, right? And who are you to say that something is pretty or ugly? Because at the end of the day, it's your buyer that makes that final decision. You may not like something about the home, and it could very well be your opinion, but that could be a step up for your buyer. It could be something that they actually like about the home. And your opinion is not the standard, folks, right? Real estate is like music, it is subjective. There's no correct answer. It just needs to work for your buyer. So, I would not point out anything negative unless it's a major issue, right? Now, if you find yourself having found a leak that your buyer hasn't noticed, absolutely you should point that out, right? Because it's going to be a hard stop anyway. So get in front of it, add value, show them, by the way, I just noticed an active leak, right? Let's talk about it. Or you could tell them, hey, look, friendly heads up, there's no air ducts, right? So this home probably doesn't have central AC. Again, when you point out negative things about the home, make sure you're pointing out things that are factual, not just your opinion, because your opinion may not be shared by your buyers, right? So especially in the case of a vacant home, I don't like to hover around my buyers. I really like them to spread out, do what they want to do. I tell them, hey, look, I don't want to hover over you. I'm going to also check out different aspects of the home. And again, this is in the case of a vacant property. I don't like to hover over them. Let them have their space. There's nothing uglier than just having an agent on top of their buyer, kind of like stalking them a little bit. Sometimes they'll get an uneasy feeling. It'll feel very salesy. Give them their space, guys. And sometimes they want to have private conversations between them so they could get on the same page, and they don't necessarily want you to listen. That's fine. Let them have that time. Let them have that space. Let them feel comfortable, at ease. Let them explore the home as you do the same. Now, folks, this only applies to vacant properties. If the property has a listing agent, you are not to leave your buyer's side, on the other hand. Okay? Do not leave your buyer's side. Do not let that listing agent take the wheel, give the whole tour. You're going to want to interject. You're going to want to check them at times, right? Don't let your buyer mentally associate the listing agent as their realtor. They can speak here and there, but make sure you interject, make sure you ask questions on behalf of your buyers. And guys, listing agents, whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, they could be sneaky Pete's. Okay? They could be sneaky Pete's. So even, if you go to an open house and you have a listing agent walking up to your buyer saying, "Hey, look, I have a flyer for you. It's more information on the home. Take it." That's when you're going to swoop in. You're going to take that flyer from the listing agent. Do not let your buyer hold on to that because, again, listing agents are sneaky Pete's, right? Yes, there's information on the home, but they also may be trying to, either on purpose or not on purpose. Those flyers have the contact information for that listing agent. There's no need for your buyer to have that contact information. Otherwise, what are you there for? Right? So you take that from the listing agent, you swoop in, don't let your buyer take it. You say, thank you very much, Mr. Listing Agent. I'll give my buyer all the info they need. And especially after in the wake of the NAR settlements and things like that, do not let your buyers have access to the listing agent's information. You're there for a reason. You're there to look after your buyer. If buyers, for whatever reason, end up going with that listing agent on that deal because you let them take a flyer or you let them exchange phone numbers, now the buyer's going to go directly to them. And not just that, at the end of the day, guys, that listing agent's not going to look after the buyer the same way you will. They're going to cede more to their sellers, and it's going to be a very one-sided type of representation. Don't let that happen. Do not do your buyers a disservice. Be their representation and look after them the way that they deserve to be looked after. Important, guys. Again, when it comes to showings, we show a lot of properties, but there are very limited windows that we have to be in front of our buyers and establish trust, right? So not only do you want to be efficient with your buyer's time, you as a professional need to be efficient with your own time. Never show just one property to your buyer. So what are you going to do? You're going to show one property on Monday, another single property on Tuesday, and another single property on Thursday. Work efficiently. It's your time and it's your gas money. If a buyer approaches you and tells you, hey, I really want to see this home, and it's the first time they reach out to you, absolutely, you're going to schedule that home. You're going to get that face to face, but you're going to want to have at least one or two other properties lined up because sometimes buyers walk into that house that looks pretty in photos and they say, within the first 5 minutes, oh, this property's not going to work out for me. Do not let them leave your site. Already have showing number 2 and showing number 3 in place. You'll look like somebody that's prepared and someone who's efficient with the buyer's time. And again, you're being efficient with your own time. While you're out there, might as well check out another property that's 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes away. Be efficient with your time, with your gas money. Um, you owe it to yourself, right? So what I'll always tell the buyer, especially if the buyer reaches out to me because they want to see one property, I'm going to schedule that property. I'm going to get that face to face. And when we're done with our first showing, I'm going to tell them, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, thank you for your time. I always want to be as efficient as possible with your time. If you're cool with it, I have another option 5 minutes away to help compare this home with another option. What do you say? 9 times out of 10, they're going to appreciate it. They're going to tell you, yes, I had a 40-minute drive, or yes, I made it out here. We might as well check out 2 other properties in the area. Thank you so much. 9 times out of 10, they're going to thank you. If for any reason they can't make it because things happen, folks, that's fine. Maybe they didn't plan for a showing number 2 or a showing number 3, but they're gonna appreciate the effort that you put in order to make use and be efficient with their time. You're gonna tell them, hey, I'm trying to be efficient with your time, but in reality, you're also being efficient with your own time as a professional, right? If the buyer, for whatever reason, cannot make showing number 2 or showing number 3, and you cannot cancel those showings for whatever reasons, all you got to do is show up. You show up to the showing anyway. Do not look bad to those listing agents. It's a small business, folks. You show up, you say, hey, look, my buyer couldn't make it, but I'm going to take video footage on their behalf, and let's stay in touch in case they want to come see the property on their own time, right? So, again, main idea, Be efficient, schedule at least 2 properties with every showing, guys. If you could schedule 3 or 4, even better. Be efficient with your time and maximize the opportunities when buyer is outside of their home in front of you. Very important, always listen. Active listening is the key to this business. Listen to your buyer's feedback. Whenever you're done with a showing, I like to ask the buyers, look, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give this home, right? They're going to tell you, I liked it enough to give it 4 stars, 5 stars, 2 stars, no stars. It's going to help mentally gauge your priorities, right? Because when you're done with your 2 or 3 showings, you may have a buyer that tells you, look, I didn't like showing number 1, but I loved showings number 2 and 3, right? And best case scenario, you place 2 offers on those properties. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they like multiple properties, you want to give yourself an idea on what to place priority on, right? Mr. Mrs. Buyer, I know you liked showings 2 and 3, right? So showing number 2, how many stars would we give it? They'll say, I'll give it 5 stars. So showing number 3, how much did you like it? How many stars? I'll give that 4.5. They loved showings 2 and 3, but now you know that because showing number 2 had the 5 stars, that's going to be your priority. If you place a double offer, you're going to start with the 5-star property. Make sense? So when you're done with the showing, you tell them, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, thank you for your time. Which houses did we like the most? And when they tell you which houses they like, that's when you ask them, are you open to placing an offer on it? If they tell you yes, now you have a green light to place that offer. Now, as soon as buyer gives you the green light and they tell you, I want to place an offer on this property, or I'm very interested in this property, this is what you tell them. You tell them, look, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to reach out to the seller side. I'm going to ask some calculated questions, and I'm going to plant the seed that we're interested in the house. I'm also going to ask them, do not move forward with any offers just yet until you and I have talked, and keep us in the conversation if you hear of anything. Because sometimes we're wrapped up with a showing and you never know if the listing agent is just about to sign off on an offer, right? That very night. So get your foot through the door. As soon as you hear that the buyer's interested, you call the listing agent or you send them a text and you tell them, look, we're interested. Keep us in the conversation. Get your foot through the door because you never know if they're just about to sign off on an offer. Let them know of your buyer's interest and let them know to keep you in the conversation, right? Very important tip. It's what separates the rookies from the professionals. You tell your buyer that you're going to plant that seed with the seller side so that they don't move up on any offers. So in your final remarks, you spoke to buyer, they're interested in placing an offer. You know that you need to reach out to the seller side to show your interest. Now, what you're going to want to do, folks, always advise your buyer to run the scenario, the financing scenario, if it's a financed offer, with their lender. Why? You want to show them the numbers up front. This is all about being efficient, folks, right? You don't want to get ahead of yourself, place the offer, get under contract. Then you're going to have the lender give them the numbers just for the buyer to find out that the monthly payment or the cash to close is not comfortable and that it's not possible, right? You want to work smart, not hard. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to get in touch with the listing agent so that they know that we're interested. I need you to get in touch with your lender so that they can tell you, go over the numbers with you, give you the monthly payment to make sure that this makes sense for you. Your buyer's going to appreciate you working efficiently and they're going to appreciate your transparency, guys, for showing them the numbers up front. You don't want to find yourself getting under contract and then having to get out of the deal immediately after because once it showed them the numbers, it just didn't make sense. Work smart, hard, be efficient. Tell them you're going to reach out to the seller side and they need to speak to their loan officer, right? Work efficiently, be efficiently with their time, be efficiently with your own time as well. And that's really the bulk of it, folks. I also wanted to really share this tool that we have, for the sake of working efficiently. Let's see over here. We're going to share. Perfect. So we're here on the MLS, right? Let's run our MLS. So we have this app right here called ShowingTime, right? We're going to run ShowingTime. So let's say we're scheduling properties for our buyers, right? We want to plan out every single detail down to the commute. You always want to pick the most efficient commute for your buyers, right? If you're starting with showing down south and then you're commuting up north just to end back down south, you're probably not choosing the most efficient route. And that is a waste of time. It is a waste of your own gas money. So work smart, not hard. You're going to launch this program, right? ShowingTime. We're going to go to showings, showing card over here. So in here, our tour date, let's say we want to show homes on Saturday. You're going to select your buyer, or you could just put the description. We're going to use Testerson, and we're going to add to my tours. So you're going to see this appointment show up for Saturday. So what we'll do next is we're going to get the MLS IDs of the homes that we want to show, right? So let's use these as an example. Let's say buyer wants to see these 3 homes. We're going to import the MLS ID. We're going to hit go. Okay, perfect. The next house they want to see is over here in the Gables. We're going to copy that. Same thing. We're going to import that, select go. And let's say the last house they want to see is right over here. Boom. So you're going to see that the map populates with the route depending on the order that you sorted, right? So let's take this for example. We have these 3 properties. It does not really make sense to start down here, number 1, go all by MIA, Miami International Airport, just to come back down for showing stop number 3. Use this tool to your advantage. Be efficient. Take into consideration the route that you and your client have to make. Be efficient with your time and be efficient with your gas money, right? So instead of taking this route, I want to plan my showings accordingly, right? So let's try it. This would be a much more efficient route if you can see right here. We're going to start with showing number 1. Right next door, we have showing number 2. And perhaps your client lives in Hialeah, right? We're going to end up at showing number 3 so that they can just go straight home from showing number 3. These are the details that separate the rookies from the professionals, right? You want to plan out the route. You want to be as efficient as possible with your buyer down to the commute that they're going to take. So again, this is the ShowingTime app in your showing cart. Use this tool, be efficient, and save time, save gas money, because it adds up, folks. Aside from that, guys, I mean, that's basically it for buyer tours and good practices. Real estate, our process is an ongoing thing. You're always going to tweak your process, your showing process, your showing tours. But the point of the matter is be as efficient as possible with your time, and maximize the opportunities that you have while you're in front of your buyer, right? Make sure you make some seamless showings. Make sure that you do your due diligence ahead of time. Be very mindful of the buyer's time and do pull all the levers possible to make sure that you give you and your buyers the highest chance of winning. So that's it for now, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you at the next training.